You can control the way datums, such as grids and levels, are displayed throughout a project and in specific views. You can also create view-specific overrides to levels and grids. For example, when grids are very close together, such as grids D and E as shown here, you can add an elbow to relocate the grid bubble. To do this, select the grid that you want to modify, such as grid E. When you select the grid, you can see a small symbol near the grid bubble. Hover the cursor over that symbol. The tooltip says Add Elbow. When you click the symbol, an elbow is added and the bubble is relocated. You can then click and drag the blue circular grips to adjust the elbow and the position of the grid bubble. You can also adjust the length of the grid line. For example, suppose you do not want grid D to extend across the entire width of the building. When you select grid D, you see a padlock icon at each end. If you drag the left end of grid D, all of the horizontal grid lines will change. To only change the length of grid D, click to unlock the padlock at the left end of grid D, and then click and drag the circular grip at the left end of the grid line so that it only crosses grid 3. Then click in an empty spot in the drawing to deselect the grid line. Select the west elevation symbol. When you do, you see a dashed line indicating the clipping plane for that elevation view. Notice that D no longer intersects this clipping plane. In the project browser, double-click the west elevation to open that view, and note that grid D does not appear in this view. The 3D model extents must pass through the elevation range in order to be displayed in the view. You can also change the extents of a grid line or level in a single view. Switch back to the Level 1 floor plan view and select Grid Line E. When you select a grid, Revit displays a 3D symbol to indicate that it is using the 3D extents. In other words, this grid will be visible whenever the plane of the grid intersects perpendicular to the current level. When you hover the cursor over the 3D symbol, the tooltip says Switch to 2D extents. And when you click the symbol, it changes to the 2D view-specific extent control. Drag the left end of the grid so that it only crosses grid 3. You have moved the end of the grid in this view, independent of its 3D extents and unconstrained by the neighboring grids. A 2D extent, like an elbow, is a view-specific override. Switch to the Level 2 plan view. The elbow you previously applied to grid D and the change you made to the 2D extent of grid E are not visible in this view because those were view-specific overrides. But the change you made to the 3D extent of grid D is visible. You can use the Propagate Extents tool to apply view-specific changes to other views. Switch back to the Level 1 floor plan view. To make the changes to grid E visible in other views, select grid E. Then, on the Modify Grids contextual ribbon, in the Datum panel, click Propagate Extents to open the Propagate Extents dialog. Here, you see a list of all views that are parallel to the current view, which in this case includes the Level 2 floor plan, the site plan, and the reflected ceiling plan views. When you select the option to only show views with the same scale as current view, the site plan disappears from the list. To apply the view-specific changes to the Level 2 floor plan view, select it in the list, and then click OK. Now, when you switch to the Level 2 floor plan view, you can see that the changes you made to the grid in the Level 1 view appears in the Level 2 floor plan view as well. To set grid E back to its 3D extents, select the grid, right-click to display a shortcut menu, and then choose Reset to 3D Extents. In this view, the grid once again extends to the 3D extent, and the elbow has been removed. But when you switch to Level 1, the view-specific changes remain. Levels also have view-specific graphic controls. For example, open the south elevation view and zoom in and select Level 1. When you do, you see a similar Add Elbow control. When you click this control, the program adds an elbow, and you can use the circular grips to adjust the label and datum symbol position. Zoom and pan over to the left end of the level. The 3D symbol indicates that any changes you make to the level will be applied to the 3D extents. When you click the symbol, it changes to the 2D view-specific extent control to indicate that any changes you make will only affect this view. Click and drag the left end of the level. Then switch to the north elevation view. The changes you made to the south elevation do not appear in this view. To apply the view-specific changes to other views, switch back to the south elevation view and select Level 1. Then, on the Modify Levels contextual ribbon, in the Datum panel, click Propagate Extents to open the Propagate Datum Extents dialog. Again, the dialog only lists the views parallel to the current view, so it only includes the north elevation. Choose that view, and then click OK. Now, when you switch back to the north elevation, the changes you made to the 2D extents of Level 1 in the south elevation also appear in the north elevation. Suppose you want the level lines to always appear to the right of the building. If you were to do this by changing their 3D extents, you would not get the desired results. To see this, open the east elevation view. Select Level 1 and drag the left grip so that the level line ends to the right of Grid A. Since you changed the 3D extents, both level lines moved. Although the level lines look fine in this view, when you switch to the west elevation, the level lines are positioned to the left of the building, the opposite of the change you made in the east elevation view. On the Quick Access toolbar, click Undo to reverse that change. To position the level lines to the right of the building in all of the elevation views, you must first set their extents to 2D and then change their length. Select Level 1 and switch to its 2D extent. Then repeat this for Level 2. Now you can drag the grip to change both levels. Next, switch to the east elevation view and repeat this process. When you adjust the 2D extents, you must repeat this for each view that you wish to override.